What I wanted to epitomize with the Internet of Bodies is this notion that we will be under assessment, we will be under measure of computation in every aspect of our lives in the future. From what you eat, who you date, what you buy on the internet, how much energy you use, but also what are your vital signs? How well are you doing in terms of health? What kind of specific genetic quirks do you have? What's your genome telling about your health, about your mental health, about how well you are doing, how well you are aging, what kind of disease you are susceptible to? So how does that work? You have to start with this notion of the Internet of Things. The fact that most of our devices, from our watch, from our phone, from our coffee maker, are actually plugged into a wider network where AI, as a form of computation, can analyze all of those data, optimize those data, and get you some answers. Now imagine that you add to those networks devices that are health devices, that are extremely private. Implants inside and outside our bodies, pacemakers, Fitbit watch. What else? You could imagine in the future DNA portable sequencers that we could use to sequence the genomes of microbes in the metro, in the New York metro, in the airport, that we could use to analyze the content of our, of our perspiration, of all of the different bodily fluids we have. That means that in the future, potentially states, nation states, potentially rising tech platforms, very powerful tech platforms, will have access to our most intimate data, what define us and what shape our lives, our future, our aging process.
Just remembering in the Internet of Things, we're things too.
We're things, we're living things.
You have a really interesting introduction to the piece where you look into the future, sort of a speculative. You described a lot of the possibilities there. It has a bit of an Orwellian twinge to it.
Well,
In the 20th century, wireless technology integrated with the human body was nothing more than science fiction. But today, Wi-Fi connected devices like heart rate monitors and sleep trackers have become common parts of American life. How has bionic technology evolved so quickly from science fiction to reality?
Star Trek races the Borg. Now these guys are arguably one of the most iconic villains of the entire franchise and one of the most terrifying. What they also do is transform members of other species into Borg drones, sometimes by injecting them with nanoprobes, other times by grafting and connecting technological elements to them, most times with a bit of both. The person being assimilated then loses all sense of individuality and becomes one with the collective, and so the hive grows.
The very idea of human being some sort of natural concept is really going to change.
Our bodies will be so high-tech we won't be able to really distinguish between what's natural and what's artificial.
One of the features of this fourth industrial revolution is that it doesn't change what we are doing, but it changes us.
One of the things that I think is so essential to free and open societies is freedom of thought. And up until now, the conversation we've been having is around freedom of speech. Once we can access people's thoughts and access people's emotions, we have to create a space that enables people to think freely, to think divergent thoughts, to think creative thoughts. And in a society where people fear having those thoughts, the likelihood of being able to enjoy progress is significantly diminished.
Eleanor Powles is the director of the Anticipatory Intelligence Lab with the Wilson Center's Science and Technology Innovation Program, and Richard Solash is editor of the Wilson Center's award-winning journal, the Wilson Quarterly. And the Quarterly's been in publication since 1976, and it's now an all-digital magazine. I want to welcome both of you to talk to us about the newest issue. The issue, Living with Artificial Intelligence, and we're going to do it with real intelligence today. Here's what the subtitle says on the website. Humans created AI. Now humanity must learn how to live with it. And then it goes on and ends up by saying it's the start of the algorithmic age. Intriguing. Tell us what this is all about, Richard.
Yes, that's a little line or two that I penned as editor of the Quarterly. And it was based on my sense that this topic is not something that we should describe as disruptive, which is a very much overused term, I think, but as something that will dwarf that characterization in both scope and depth. AI, they call it part of the fourth industrial revolution. Obviously, speaking from a non-expert perspective, Eleanor is certainly the right person to give you an expert take. But in reading the piece myself, I got quite an education and a revelation. This AI and advances in technology related to AI seems to me will upend industry after industry. But I think something else you pointed out, John, is that this issue of the quarterly doesn't just look at AI, but also reveals the human implications, which I think sometimes tends to get lost, especially in talking about technological developments. And in talking about the human implications, I feel that we're not only talking about something philosophical or spiritual, but also something with very distinct policy implications that have to be considered. And then by extension, domestic policy implications, social policy within one country get expanded to geopolitics and foreign policy implications. So we tried to touch on all of that in that little blurb to describe the issue and develop those threads in the articles within.
Well, I think it's effective in doing that. And I like your explanation of rejecting the term disruptive, which could speak to temporary circumstances, right? A big storm can be disruptive.
Right.
We're talking about something that's going to change the way we live.
Right.
Everything about us. So your article is Searching for Privacy in the Internet of Bodies. You're great at coming up with new terminology.
Compelling title, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes,
Tell us, what is this about?
So the Internet of Bodies. Imagine the power of AI. What is artificial intelligence? It's a way to automate computation and cognition. So we can now automate learning, perceiving, doing computation. It's a pervasive general purpose technology that will be used in all of our industries, that will come into our professional networks, our private networks, our schools, our industries and our offices.
And what could this Internet of Bodies mean for our lives moving forward? RAND researchers are studying this phenomenon and what consumers and policymakers need to know as we veer into uncharted territory.
The Internet of Bodies, or IOB, is actually an ecosystem. It's a bunch of devices that are connected to the internet that contain software and that either collect personal health data about you or can alter the body's function. We think of the Internet of Bodies as this collection of all these devices as well as all the data that the devices are gathering about you. And in healthcare, Internet of Bodies has been around for quite a while. With the advent of the internet, it makes a lot of sense to connect your pacemaker to the internet so that your doctor can be automatically notified if something weird happens, if there's an anomaly. It's natural in a lot of ways to want to understand more about your body, how it functions, how well it's doing.
IOB devices could revolutionize healthcare. Unprecedented amounts of personal health data could inform treatment plans that are completely tailored to a patient's needs.
There are pills now that have an electronic sensor that let a healthcare provider know whether you have taken the medication. Other things like precision medicine. So precision medicine is the idea of creating pharmaceuticals or treatment like specifically for your body, for your personalized treatment. And I think IOB could really help with that because nowadays a lot of healthcare is based more on, average reactions, whereas with data from IOB devices, you might be able to really more precisely treat a certain disease.
But the Internet of Bodies won't be a cure-all. In fact, the largely unregulated market poses risks to the uniquely sensitive data these devices collect.
First of all, there's the cyber risk of an actor potentially hacking into the system, whatever it might be. There's the privacy risk of all this data that's being collected, and the regulations about that data are really murky at the moment. And so there's not a lot of clarity into who owns the data, what happens to it, who it gets sold to, how it's being used. And there's even potentially national security and global security risks.
A few examples of these risks have already played out in real life. For instance, in 2018, highly sensitive information about U.S. military activity and base locations was inadvertently revealed by soldiers' fitness trackers. So this is a pivotal moment. What can we do to make sure we reap the potential benefits of the Internet of Bodies without risking our privacy, security, and personal autonomy?
Consumers should be wary of IOB devices because as it's becoming more and more popular, all of this intimate data is being collected, arguably more intimate data than we've ever really recorded before. There's no clarity on what is being done with that data. You know, with an old mechanical pacemaker, there's no data that was being collected and stored, and you could look at a history of someone's heart rhythms. Because policy tends to lag behind innovative technologies like this, it's probably up to the consumers and to the healthcare patients to really be aware of the devices that they're using and what is happening to their data, and to know what the regulations are in their particular state, because it does vary so much state by state. Even if you think you're not interesting or that nothing will happen with your data, there are a lot of unknowns that I think we need to be careful about.
The Borg are, simply put, cybernetic beings. Cyborgs, if you will, part technological, part biological, so physically they're already quite unsettling. To add to that, the Borg do not exist as individuals. They exist as a sort of hive mind, with every member of the species interconnected with each other in what they call the collective. Decisions, commands, instructions are all agreed upon, thought out, and executed by every Borg all at once. The Borg have one will. And this serves their primary function, their ultimate goal, which is to attain perfection, or more to the point, what they consider perfection to be. What makes this whole thing even more terrifying is that nothing can seem to come between the Borg and their goal. No species, no spatial anomaly, no temporal distortion. The Borg almost seem like an unstoppable force, pushing through everything the galaxy can throw at them with raw determination. The Borg seem to be humanoid for the most part, but this doesn't necessarily mean all of them are. This is because the Borg use a technique called assimilation to enhance and improve themselves, as well as grow their numbers. Assimilation, as they put it, is adding the biological and technological distinctiveness of another species to their own. This other species' culture will then adapt to service them. Now, yes, this does mean download information and steal technology. Everything they are and do is kind of one and the same, or at least serves the same purpose. The Borg Queen, however, is not quite that. She seems to be a leader of some kind. In her own words, she states, "I am the beginning, the end, the one who is many, I am the Borg." Look, I don't know exactly how to interpret that. All I can tell you is that the Borg Queen is said to bring order to chaos. Comprised of trillions of members, formerly from thousands of varying races, it's obvious why the Borg cast a shadow of fear over the entire galaxy. Many consider becoming a Borg drone worse even than death.
Screw your freedom.